This tutorial will review Euclidean distance, but demonstrate how it does not need only a single input source. That this tool can be used with multiple sources, and it can actually be used to measure distance from raster cells as well. So first, multiple sources. If you remember last time, we did one rack. That's why there seem to be rings emanating outward from this source. If I put two sources in now, it would be very, very similar, but areas here, right, that are right between both sources, this value might switch. Originally, this cell here, right, that's in this orange color, is measuring its distance here. But now it would have the option to measure here as well. So notice that when you measure from multiple sources, you're not saying which source you're closest to. That's how we do Euclidean allocation. You're simply saying how far am I away from any source that I'm using as an input. No maximum, cell size is fine. Same principle would hold true for direction, so we don't need to show it. Right? So even though the symbology is a little bit different, maybe I'll switch it up like I did before. I think I made them 32 categories. Classified, made this one 0 just so it was easier to see. Right? You can kind of see what I'm talking about. That single radial growth changes because now as I get south, I'm actually getting closer to this cell. And so there becomes a point where I'm no longer that far from this cell, or sorry, from this point, I'm now that close to this one. Right? And that holds true in all the areas down here. But if I were to continue north, there's no sources up here, so of course I'm getting far away from both of them. So again, every cell now is just reporting its distance to the closest source. The other option that you have would be to measure your distance to a raster. So perhaps here I want to maybe measure my distance to vacant land. So first I'm going to do this tool wrong, so that I can show you how you have to do it to make it right. So I can drag in my raster, right? My tool is happy with this, raster or feature. No maximum, no need for cell, perfect. All right, excellent. Looks like I have a series of values, but I know enough that if I create unique, it's only going to come back, well, maybe it'll try to give me a couple more. But for the most part, it's only going to come back, right, one value in here. All these other little ones are tiny edge cells that are messing things up. But if I engage my pixel inspector, I'm going to open distance to vacant. I can see it's all 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. If you need further confirmation, I'm going to go back to my symbology. I'm going to go to classified. I'm going to make this 2 categories, and those 2 categories are going to be 0 and everything else. I'll make that big yellow, and I'll make this nice and green. And you'll see pretty much everything, maybe some edge cells, right? Because they're getting clipped from the data set, and that's why they appear to be so small. Everything here, everything where there was a value is 0. If you remember, I wanted to measure my distance from vacant land. I wanted that, but the tool doesn't know that. All the tool received as input was this raster. And this raster has 9 values. So it just treated all of those values as equal. And the distance from any point to itself is always 0. So if you ever want to highlight a particular raster value, you need to select it. So now I've selected all the vacant land values. I'm going to change nothing about the way that I did this. Land use raster. And now something a little bit more reasonable will come back. Mess with the values again. 0 to 32, maybe make the minimum 0. Right, turn that to a nice black color so you can see where it emanates from. Turn off the selectability. And there we go. Now I'm measuring my distance to all of the vacant land, and I was able to do that because I went into the attribute table and I selected vacant land. The other instance in which you would not need to select, let's say I had taken this into reclassify and reclassified it so vacant land had a value of 1 and everything else was no data. In that instance, I wouldn't need to select. So you only need to select in these instances where you're wanting to call out one value over others.